farmer's field and
Can
came
we
upon
play
some
some music?
Indian
Yeah,
girls.
I'll just introduce and then.
And so we won the case, and then there
Or do
was
you want to play the music first and then?
Apache Pride in Oklahoma, and they won this big case where there were like 36 semis full of
Yeah, no, go ahead, and I'll give you 2
bones and
minutes.
things that got moved to Oklahoma where the Apaches are. And so it became sort of a big deal. American Indian kind of players.
Is it okay if the microphone's on? Okay. And we're recording this too.
No thinking. Okay, I promise, no thinking. Yeah, thinking's where we should get in trouble.
What's your name again?
Joshua.
Joshua. Let's stop.
That's
Good evening, and welcome to Magers Quinn on this rainy day. My name is Sarah, and I'm a bookseller here. I'm pleased that you are joining us to celebrate James P. Lenfestey's book, Time Remaining, in conversation with Wang Ping. A few housekeeping things before we get on with the show. Tonight you'll hear from both authors, then there will be a time at the end of the program for audience questions. After Q&A, please allow the authors to move to the side of the table. That could get a glass display case at the front that you passed. That's where you can say hello, get a signed copy of the book, and ask any questions that you have if you have any more. If you do buy a book here this evening, you're not only supporting both of our authors, but also an independently owned bookstore, and we cannot thank you enough. And please finally allow me to introduce our authors. Alright, James P. Lenfestey, after a career in academia, marketing, communications, and journalism on the editorial board of the Star Tribune, where he won several patron awards for excellence since 2000, Lenfestey has published 8 collections of poems, 2 collections of personal essays, edited 3 poetry anthologies, and co-edited Robert Bly in This World, the University of Minnesota Press. His hybrid memoir, Seeking the Cave, a pilgrimage of Coal Mountain, Milkweed Editions, was a finalist for the 2014 Minnesota Book Award. His 6th poetry collection, A Marriage Book, 50 Years of Poems from a Marriage, Milkweed Editions, was a finalist for 2 2017 Midwest Book Awards. In 2020, he received the K. Sexton Award for significant contributions and leadership in the Minnesota literary community. In November 2024, Milkweed Editions publishes 8 poetry collections, Time Remaining, Body Odes, Praise Songs, Oddities, Amazements. For 15 years, he chaired the Popular Literary Witnesses for Poetry program in Minneapolis and led a summer poetry class on Mackinac Island, Michigan. He currently serves on the boards of Red Dragonfly Press in Minnesota, the Hellbender Poetry Gathering in North Carolina, and is the founder of Poets, Writers, and Musicians Against the War on Terror. He lives in Minneapolis with his wife, the journalist Susan Lenfestey. They have 4 children and 10 grandchildren.
Any dogs?
all true. Could you hold the mic closer to your mouth?
Sure. Wang Ping is a poet, writer, photographer, performance, and multimedia artist. Her publications have been translated into multiple languages and include poetry, short stories, novels, cultural studies, and children's stories. Her multimedia exhibitions address global themes of industrialization, the environment, interdependency, and the people. She is the recipient of numerous awards, a professor of English, and founder of the Kinship of Rivers Project. Please allow for our authors to come up and welcome.
I don't think we need a mic, do I? No, okay. Thank you for coming out on this sketchy evening. I can't tell you. So you were about to hear from the two second best poets in America, Ping and myself, because we will agree that the first best is our hero, Gary Snyder.
Gary Snyder, just give me that.
I just
Gary
gave her a pin
Snyder
here.
for president.
And she sees him a lot, and I hope to see him. I brought him out here in 1969, and we've been friends ever since. And he's
No,
the most.
again, right now,
First time.
2000.
Well, many times since, but the first time in 1969. Hi, come on, sit down.
I just came off the street, so I didn't even know you were here.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. You can sit up here if you
Oh,
want.
I'll sit next to
So-
you. I want to be in the back. Thank you.
What'll happen, I'll do about 15 minutes of poems. Then Ping will do about 15 minutes of poems. And then we'll have a little chat with you and with ourselves about why we do this. These songs that mean so much to us. So this is from the new book, Time Remaining. And I'll start with this little Chinese poem. Here we languish, a bunch of poor scholars ravaged by extremes of hunger and cold. Out of work, our only joy is poetry. Scribble, scribble, we wear out our brains. Who will read the songs of such men? On that point, ladies and gentlemen, you could save your sighs. We could inscribe our poems on biscuits, and homeless dogs would deign to nibble.
Is it by Hanshan?
That's Hanshan, Cold Mountain. I memorized them about 50 years ago, and it changed my life, because guess what? It takes all the pressure off, doesn't it? Right? There he is, complaining 1,200 years ago. No one's gonna read his stuff, and here I am, reciting it to you by heart. And those are the kind of poems I did for a long time. The sure style, about 8 lines more or less to get everything you want in, but I also fell in love with that guy, Pablo Neruda. And Neruda's long odes, particularly odes to common things, socks and salt and bees and honey. And then I found out that I had a whole bunch of longer poems. So his poems inspired me to save and use those poems, and then I wrote a whole bunch of parts of the body too. Let's talk about that. But I start here. Ode to the Independent Bookstore, and this is for Denny Magers, for our host here today. This for me is a chapel, right? All bookstores are a chapel. Ode to the Independent Bookstore for Denny Magers and his crew here. Friends, if I may digress from reciting my life's work between these thin, stiff covers to look around. Every one of these slim slabs, these foliated bricks, these heavy letters, these unique arrangements, unique runic marks, these alphabets of lifetimes, these categories of experience, fiction, memoir, travel, history, mystery, romance, adventure, poems. Every inch-thick upright brick contains the history of a human soul. And I'm sorry, but TV does not. My iPhone does not. Google does not. Google will replace it in an historical nanosecond. 3 librarians working for me in my whole life, and faster by 100,000 nanoseconds is free of human soul. The soul inhabiting these bricks. Just crack a cover, crack a cover. A cover at random, see the light pour out. Starlight, sunlight, dirty bare bulb electric light, LED light, soul light, which means also darkness. Murderous, despairing darkness, blackness within blackness, the dripping water at the bottom of the well, darkness, the moss-covered crumbling walls slipping under fragments of torn fingernails attached to broken bones and bleeding bodies, darkness. bear ruined choirs of life, the intimations of immortality life, the moment just before, the moment just after death life. Each brick of a book hiding its light between the thinnest skin of paper, spread pulp from dappled forests. The Pulitzers, National Book Awards, and Nobels may hold more light, even the most light. But all are radiant on these walls of upright bricks assembled one by one by the trowel of the singular, mad focus of one human life. Probably to the exclusion of spouse, children, and amigos. To the failure to fully sell one's soul to that other marketplace of things. This, the marketplace of soul things. And I fall over my thickened tongue, cracked and bleeding cheeks, and running eyes, and broken beaten feet, and spastic waving arms, and fingertips emitting sparks of fire. Thank you for building this illuminating house.
We're good.
You sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So I told you Neruda got me into this. And there were Bly's translations, of course, about the Bly and its pushing, and I learned a great deal from all of that. Reading Neruda Odes at Dawn. I feel a kind of shame listening to this largeness. Generous songs, one after another, cascading down the page like recriminations, that I did not do enough and see enough to praise, that I did not shout loud enough for the miners, the workers, though I did shout for the fecking earth, but in squares of daily journalist prose collapsed into the dump or igniting small fires in the cabin. Shredded newsprinters' dark headlines recede daily into the past like footfalls of marching soldiers back into the earth, igniting nothing in the human heart to unlock the branch before heaven, the fertile branch, plum, cherry, and orange. My God, how we have forsaken you for the corruption of impermanent ink, abandoned astonishment for the plow of extraction, tearing out your hair to redden the dawn with fire. And Neruda knew, who saw the infinite in grains of salt from the sea, in the sweat of mines, in the multitudinous bee. I am exhausted reading Neruda's odes, his generous lips and belly, his radiant open palms, pulling up his violent socks, shaking his salt, fingering the womanly curve of the spoon, the manly curve of the fork, the smooth neck of the carafe knife. Nothing, nothing left to do but give again. Let me leave nothing on the plate of this life but crystals of salt. So I think I told you I wrote a lot of odes to parts of the body. I guess a couple of short ones. I don't have enough time for the long ones. But ode to the belly. You know, Ben Jonson said, "Hail, hail, plump paunch, the founder of the feast." So many want to lose you, drop you like an anvil in the sink, unwrap your Turkish towel, covering your sublime Greco-Roman torso. Why is it we wonder you thicken with age like curd, like a floating bloated goat, like a sagging drum? Why does the tanned leather skin of the belt complain like some rusted rolling cable holding up an ancient Brooklyn bridge? My hands want to play you like a drum, like a resonant bass, slap time like a subway musician's foot, the marvelous cavernous echo. Squatting, we are so much more Buddha than Jesus. Our bellies float like lotus blossoms on a pond, surrounded by waves, leaves, riffled waters, trailing willows. We are supposed to be as resplendent as we are, open to sun and wind, entirely edible in multiple forms. My belly holds a universe of flora whose names I know but have forgotten. Like my kindergarten class, all of whom is still with me. True, by the way, I should remember. Like my kindergarten class, all of whom is still with me, holding my hand. Lovers, dancers, laggards, the fattest, the smartest of them all. You are where the laugh lives, the laugh that shakes the whole of us, the quake revealing not underlying faults of holy virtues, our ravenous capacity for cavernous joy.
Very good, yeah.
Cool. So I have a few of these poems about writing about David. So I've studied the history of the alphabet, which we use on a daily basis in our writing. Comes from the Phoenicians, and that's all I'll tell you right now. But so I wrote a love letter to the alphabet. It's called Love Letter. I love you, letters. A, simple-minded ox, upside down, rolling in the hay. B, a sideways house, two capacious rooms, sheltering the sounds alpha and beta in Greek, opening into the full Roman abecedarium that I was taught to make with building blocks, graphite lines, then curves and winding cursive trails of bottled ink. To think, no, to imagine the sea to be a goldfish bowl, spilled without its goldfish. D, a pregnant doe without her head or tail. E, a sideways glance at the channels of labyrinth. F, an unexpected opening. G, a complex curve initiating God. H, the bar hung between two struts put together and hold up better. Ah, letters, you swim before my eyes from Phoenician fact to flights of fancy, making every human sentence proud to be writ clearly up or down. And so, my love, I raise my capital I and tip toward the goblet, capital U, believing in no reason why, divinity, alpha to omega to the question why. Every letter on to the hooks and beaks and claws of Z. Begin with my love for the curve of you. Well, we've been given the gift of an alphabet. But you gotta write it down, you need a tool. Ode to my paper-made flair. I buy you by the dozen, the box more than French fries than socks. Though the permanent ink inside your slime more shirts than red spaghetti or wine. It's your drag on the grain of the sheet that I need, the stroke clear and bold like the tunes of Chinese carving memory stones or oracle. You were keyed to the lock of my liquid emotions, my guide on the Silk Road and wind-ravaged oceans. Near the end of confusion and all of my ruses, my cane, my walking stick, my sandals, my hat, my clothes, my senses, my football, my bat. Your blade cuts the bedrock where all lies lay bare. The terror of honesty, impossible to share without you, my tongue, my paper-made flair. Few more. So you'll hear me getting up and down on the chair. I'm 80, by the way, in case you're wondering. And one of the joys of being 80 or 70 is groaning. Ooh, that's what you say. Oh, getting up. Oh, that's always true. Oh, do groaning. Song of failing time, screech of stuck limbs, rasp of joints, slog of flaccid muscles, rise with moaning exhalations of stupendous effort, satisfied discomfort, slowly lower into the car seat with its tangle of pedals, up onto the treacherous curb, heave from the soft couch, settle hard on the kitchen chair, roll out of the tangled bed like a pine log felled in a forest catastrophe. Pull at socks on distant feet, stubbled with cramped toes, tipped with razor blades. Hips set in concrete, grinding into soft legs of distant, elusive pants. And so did Lonnie. Entitled, right, Craig? Entitled. Allowed the pleasure of venting oneself unto oneself, in the company of oneself, precariously mobile, free as yet of attendance, diapers, drool.
As of yet.
So I was asked by my Dartmouth class, by the way, that 80th birthday, I went to DC, we had a big celebration, and our best classmate by far is the senator from Maine, who was indeed our superstar, still is. And then they had me do poetry, and I did this whole thing, I was doing this, like you, when people came up to me after and said, I didn't have my hearing aid turned up, and I realized they're all 80. Time remaining, so last fall, the last poem to go in the book, it happened about this time last year, was I went to the doctor for the annual checkup. They set certain traps for you, that it's only somewhat ready for. Time remaining, the epigraph is great, but with the spirit all unreconciled, flash an unquenchable defiance to the stars. Draw a clock, the nurse said. Draw a clock, a clove, a pitcher of cream, a bath, me? I am not going to waste my time remaining drawing something I've known since the first blink on my mother's wrist and every day on strangers, cops, starlets, kids. An insult to be asked to draw a clock. Okay, 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, that's all I'm giving up time. But you, with your doe eyes, weight above your chartreuse mask, and burnt brown skin and patient poise. And so I pencil in the remaining numbers. As you turn away, you note, forgot the 10. Forgot the 10. Fingers, toes, the base of all our daily toil. No way I forgot the 10. I abjure it, decry it, deny it. As for the 3 words you asked me to remember, one was finger, a part of the body, touch and feel, the rest, abstractions, Latinate, hookless and feckless. I grant them no space. Like awesome. I grant them no space. Inside this rock solid skull of me lies an ocean where whales glide and sport and sing dream songs. And I'll be damned if I care about a high school wall clock in my allotted time remaining in this wet and circular life to draw tiny magnetic bits as if I were not already high as a kite this morning, driving to the checkup because the snow from the mountains finally arrived. As flakes big as feathers, like those dropped by the Cooper's hawk in the backyard, tearing the breasts of a fresh killed sparrow from the arbor vitae, tree of life. Just yesterday, bloody snowflakes floating down in shared animal astonishment. At my age, I will not be pinned to the cold glass face of a kindergarten clock. No, I cherish my grandfather's pocket watch. It ticked like a heartbeat until it died in my arms. Two more. So, this is a bookseller poem too. Loaves, L-O-A-V-E-S, loaves. While I listened to the poet, that was where you guys are, while I listened to the poet in the bookstore, and commuters listened to the radio stuck in traffic, and others fled calamity across indifferent borders, she parked her car before the bakery next door. As I emerged into a moist drizzle that mirrored my melancholy mood, she opened the hatch of her station wagon, a Taurus, and loaded it with a bag of loaves. A bag big as a yoga ball, white as an ice cap, knotted at the top, bulging with the round edges of old loaves like curling stones. She loaded another bag, her white hair damp and short, face clear and businesslike, Taurus the bull, strong and rustic. I lifted the next one from the sidewalk, surprised and weighted, heavy as a human body, and hefted it to her. Then the remaining two. For the old, she said, they don't have much money. She drove off. She drove off, filled to the brim with bread. A few days old and not a spot on the mold, even in the dampness of May. And I already felt full inside, yeasted by the poet's simple ingredients: sound, sense, rhythm, and heat. That sound, sense, rhythm, and heat. I drove home and my old Subaru said to feel like love, the radio off. And for the nuts, for the moment, felt no hunger inside, nor in the world. These are all of my book, by the way, my entire rating. It ends with this, and if you give me a minute, I can do one other one. But it ends this way. I'm not a dream guy. This is a dream. Tour of kindness. The position would be there. It was a dream, of course. A tour bus coming from somewhere to where we were. You and me, waiting. Expectant from the band, the troupe, coming from a great distance, our anticipation, what it might be, what it could mean, what was hoped for, the need to name it. And as I awoke in the fluttering before certainty, beneath the troubled surface of the day, the name came to me, all I remember, tour of kindness. Now I am waiting. We are all waiting, wondering when it will arrive and what it can do. This one, which is your obituary.
Which is what?
Your obituary, mine. Where poets go. This is dedicated to Dick Moore. Somebody may have known he was head of our public TV station here. Grew up in California, friend of Rex Rock. Always thought of himself as a poet, but founded public radio in California, founded public TV in California, came here to run a very big operation, became good friends. I visited him many times in assisted living in Marin. Dick Moore died in '95. So the first two, by the way, if you don't know, if you're ignorant about the death throes of poets, it opens with two. Keats, who died, was sent to Italy to get better, but he didn't, tuberculosis, and he died of tuberculosis. Shelley was in Italy, and his friend was sailing off the shore, off the coast, and drowned in a storm, and his friends burned his bones, burned his body on the beach. So that's behind us. You ready? Where poets go for Dick Moore. The Protestant cemetery in Rome. Tomb of Keats' bubbled blood and Shelley's beach-scorched boat. The couch in Oregon, housing Stafford's quiet path, his quiet path. The cobbles of worn Nazareth, where Muhammad Ali crafted peace in poems inside his tiny trinket shop. And Dick Moore's monk cell and assisted living in Marin, where he knew the spine of every book and made an eye-blind whiteboard sing exquisite blindness sonnets. There are three of his lines. It is not a fair exchange, light for dark. So much remains on the other side of life, a world lost in is never fair. I remember digging a hole for our dog, deep as I could among tangled cedar roots, and my daughter could not put him in, my wife could not put him in. What poems he wrote with his generous tongue. People earn no better place on earth than dogs or soldiers shot and rotting in a trench. All get one slim slice of soil or air. Organs plucked by condors like cello strings. Hymned by fungus, dug by moles, licked by flame, a modest cloud of ragged smoke. But listen, a poem by Sappho was just discovered in ancient dug in broken Egypt. Unfurled now for papyrus junk, the whole earth trembled as burnished sheaves flower into the Greek, already twice sung in English, as the Islamic State blasts and burns the stone remains of Nineveh. As the Islamic State blasts and burns the stone remains. So many fragments in the rubble. Songs sung at dawn before the battle lost. A mother before an infant's bed. A man incanting a lover's chin. A child chanting charms against the dark. And Dick Moore's suite of sonnets arriving 10 days past his death, bright as Milton's angel, a brilliant stop to time. Tuberculosis stilled the lungs of Keats and Stephen Crane, my girl. Seawater filled up Shelley with cobalt blue. Emily claimed the apt name Bright's disease. And Dick Moore, the final tick from sturdy clock at 95. Some dumb thing will silence me. A blow to the head, a drunken fender, the creaking of the clock, bird flu. And you? So cobble up a shrine before we die. A dog at home, entangled in roots and words, inspire to fill the mind with grace, expire, breathe out the final soul. That's from my book, Time Remaining, Body Odes, Praise Songs, Oddities, and Amazements. And now we bring you the other second best poet in America after Lenfestey, Wang Ping, my great friend.
Do you want to
And
sit?
this book is astonishing. She's a competitive rower. She's a marvelous teacher. She's a translator of Chinese. Grew up on the banks of the Yangtze on an island outside of Shanghai with bullets flying over her head. And she's conquered the world by understanding and the spiritual life of the rivers of our planet. And the Mississippi is her adopted one, celebrated here, which is a rower on that floor. Take care.
He's the godfather of poetry himself. I gave him the title years ago. Yeah. So,
Here, I'll come over here.
and my printer broke after left Manchester, so I never bothered to buy another printer. 'Cause they never work anymore. I have like 4 or 5. No, I hate them. So I just started using
Yeah.
this. Okay?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to use your,
Yes.
by the way, I brought you your book. I need your book.
I have books. So what do you want? Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, you're good at video. You might want to sit down and use the mic.
No.
Because you're a soft voice.
No, they can hear. You can hear me, right? You cannot?
Now speak up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I can't. I have to hear. If you can't hear me, let me know. I will use the mic. But I'll try to just use my voice. I was inspired by your ode to salt. So I remember you like the, salt of the earth poem I posted on Facebook. So it was here for you, salt of the earth. At the basin of the backwater, I took off my socks. I feel each salt crystal charging my cells with its positive and negative force. From soul to soul, as Na and Si enters my spirit through Yongquan, gushing spring. Located at the center of my souls, around me, St. Andreas has been making mountains with rocks and liquefied earth, painting the world with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. At the bottom of the continent, 282 feet below the sea, the air is still, and salt flat shines with white light. Mixing and bouncing off the mountain's rainbow colors, we dance along the Death Valley through dust, water, and salt, the most abundant elements, the most defiled and trampled upon, as dust, poison, extra. Can a salt crystal lift a mountain? Ask Nasi if life exists without its plan. No water, no life, no salt. The world is a motionless place. Na and Si. Na positive and Si negative. Yang and Yin, fire and water, Mali and spirit. Salt of the earth, each crystal as unique as snowflake. Through my soul, I feel the weight of the earth. Through my palms, the sky sends an unbearable light and joy. I open my arms to embrace the year of the snake. Its sharpened fires and quakes, its gushing spring, Yongquan. By the way, gushing spring, Yongquan, is located at the bottom of the soul. That's the beginning of the kidney meridian. I also have a degree in Chinese medicine, and it's also the foundation. It likes salt, and it's water. The color is black, and if you have strong kidney qi, you have a lot of guts and energy, and you thick hair and shiny hair, and you have a lot of courage and to do whatever you want. No fears. So it's good to place your soul, Yongquan, in touch with the salt and the earth. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm fine, thank you. So this poem is for after I was eating lunch, the first lunch on my porch, from the fiddleheads from my garden. That's the first cut of the fiddleheads, the pig.
This year?
No, 2 years ago. And then I was listening to radio, and as I was eating, the egg was the fiddleheads, and it was so delicious. Then Gary Snyder's long hair came on the radio.
Oh.
So I wrote this one. I'm going to visit Gary Snyder very soon, so I'm really lucky to read the poetry together. Dear Garden, my home is half block from the Mississippi Gorge. After the storm, dear come, each step a plum blossom in the sea. We come as a family along empty sidewalks. In the trembling snow, one deer lives. Will she survive the winter? lunch on my greens all year. Swiss charts and squash leaves are their favorites. They leave teeth marks on every baby buttercup. People say the Mississippi is their backyard, but I'm just a happy child playing by the river. Eagles, woodpeckers, finches, cardinals, blue jays, and the blue heron's cries blessing the sky. A gaggle of turkeys, a nursery of raccoons. They sit by my dragon tea house, eat treasures from the compost, leaving their droppings as thank you gifts. Coyote and wolves are loners. They come and go like wind spirit. This year, my seedling yielded 20 butternuts, each blessed by deities, each matured with dear blessing. Each fed my family and friends sweet earth. The other year, the Mississippi snowed 8 feet. Deer camped in my garden, feasting on red cedars. Their black droppings sprayed the white earth like stars. Next spring, cedars came back roaring. I offered them to the Standing Rock. They always come back roaring, passing through us, as rivers, as garden, as I'll read one more poem that you told me to read. Things that matter can catch us by surprise. And also it has a Chinese translation. This book is bilingual, by the way. It's my first bilingual book. I will. Things that matter catch us by surprise. The air trembles with anticipation. Somewhere nearby and far away, a miracle lingers. Deep in the northern woods, a wolf holds red riding hood. A man, caught by the morning news, forgets his dog under the bush, swollen with puppies. Somewhere in China, a little peasant girl dreams of college as she reads hand-copied Shakespeare behind bags of rice, soap, pesticide, pickles. I believe every turn I've made is touched by an angel. Someone, somewhere, has guided me through the tangled path. Now I stand at the confluence of 2 great rivers, alone and surrounded by prayer and spirits. The air vibrates with wonders. Children are coming home with birthday cards and a copper house for birds. It's for my 50th birthday. Well, you want me to read the Chinese? Okay. 最不在意的是，总是出其不意的追上。空气里颤抖着某种期待，某个奇迹在远近的某个地方徘徊。北方林子的深处，大灰狼对着小红帽甜言蜜语。一只怀孕的狗在树荫里喘息，一个男人在树下读报。东海的某座小岛上，一个女孩躲在合作社农药袋后面，翻阅莎士比亚手抄，梦想关闭了10年的大学。我们走过的每一个十字路口，都有神灵的触摸，指点我们走出荆棘之路。站在2个大河的交汇处，这里充满了精灵和祈祷。 还有神奇在摇摇晃晃，孩子们快要回家了，拿着给我的生日卡，还有同住的Well, I think you want to hear us talk, right?
Yeah, well, but this is the part of it. So, I wrote these odes to parts of the body. What do I find in her book? Hippocampus.
Oh,
Yeah.
you want to read it? Why don't you? Yeah.
So I thought I was the only guy funky enough to do this. And I find we've been on the same path.
Yes,
For a
yes.
long, long time. And we both revere our mentor, Gary Snyder, on the planet.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a copy of this book, Turtle Island, which is dead, won the Pulitzer in 1975, and this, you guys, this material back about how we can live in this world in a different way. And we kind of missed the bus on some of, for example, population 3 million is about right. We're at 8. It's, you know, but it's phenomenal. This one. Hippocampus, seat of memories for yesterday, today, and tomorrow. For the only part of the brain that keeps growing and shrinking, it's a needle, sewing the past and future together. A handful of threads weaving reality in the silk brocade. Quote, use it or lose it, says the neurologist. If we don't recall or reinvent our pain, fear, anger, or sorrow, how do we find our joy? Without joy, how do we seek humanity? Without humanity, where do we stand? And how the instance of now holds on to the future. Handsome H.M. Who's that?
H.M. He's a guy who, are you familiar with H.M.? He's famous, he had, what do you call it, brain? Yeah, and so the doctor took out his hippocampus, and suddenly all his memory for the present is gone. He cannot remember anything, right, except for a very long distance memory. So he became the medical, like, the lab,
Oh, okay.
yeah, to study what hippocampus does to us.
That's the guy who had a bolt to his head.
That's a different guy.
Okay.
Well, I know this because I'm like, 10 years I studied medicine, half is Chinese, half is Western, and my focus is brain, neurology, and I just suddenly, I just started poetry, neurology, our brain, in the universe, that's the stars, the constellation, and also the entanglement from quantum physics. They're all really the parallel world, and they're all entangled, they're all things, it's all put together or string together by poetry. We'll talk more about this. Okay.
So, so handsome H.M., he lost his hippocampus to live a, quote, normal life, unquote, only to be tossed into the sea of present tense, drifting between hospital and lab, from one event to another, forever now and here, and no yesterday. Where is that young, gentle Henry? Who is this good old H.M. without a story? Homo sapiens experts tell us the size of hippocampus is key for memory, foundation for logic and emotions that allow us to plan our future. The hallmark separating us from the beasts. The hallmark separating us from the beasts. But how do we explain elephants carrying the biggest memory house for smell, sound, touch, and love? The biggest house for smell, sound, touch, and love. And chimps who play politics better than the baboons in the White House.
It's true, there's a book about that. That every politician has to
And the crows who remember faces and know what to do with friends or enemies. Monarchs who remember every numbers to stay alive along the migration route. We think we know, as priests, professors, scientists, conquerors, but do we know or we don't know? Do we hear Gaia's weeping for our suffering? No, Gaia, do we hear Gaia's weeping for our suffering? Do we see animals laughing and watching from their kingdoms?
Yeah.
How we scheme our escape from the wheel of memories? How we try to untangle ourselves from the spoke of time and space?
Okay.
Well, we kind of laid it out there, we kind of chat, this is,
I think crows must have a campus that can pass along the information through generations, because they've done experiments where they'll
Yeah,
have,
they are really smart.
yeah, they'll have, one guy who is wearing a very distinctive mask, go through and, throw stones at the crows and get them all really mad, so that next time he came through, and every other time he came through, they would go nuts and get, calling and
Yeah.
and then they waited until that generation had passed and the next generation had come, and they came in with the mask, and they were upset as well, because even though they'd never seen it before in their lives.
It's their poetry, imprinted in their memory.
Yes.
Ode to the Family of Crow. I'm on the case. This is,
You have a poem for everything.
well, no, you do, but together we fill the whole thing. I did not have a poem for the hippocampus. Ode to the Family of Crow. I love your language spoken in the woodlot behind the house. Clack and purr, growl and hum and moan. Behind the window screen that separates us forever. You click and coo to babies, yell to teens, tell us where you are. We have a crow's nest in the backyard, drives us nuts all morning. Tell us where you are. How smart you are. You learn our language, feast at the wheels of our cars. Know that when the garbage is out, know when we sleep, how angry we are if we own guns. Black as starless night, not even the blackbird's yellow eye, the snowy egret's yellow foot. Your slick feathers eat light like an oil slick eats light. As planes fall from the sky, you fall from the sky, a shroud, carrying the light at your arrival. Only the living dark and complain. Like night, you own half the world. I've come to love all of you, rowing your darkness at dusk in flocks across the winter sky. Growing as a roosting, thriving city in a neighborhood of barren trees. Anyway, we're both listeners. You gotta be a listener to be a poet. If you're a visual artist, you're infected with sight. The sight's got a lot going for it, but it can also overpower us. And as we know, our ancestors were much, we all have a great sense of smell. But it has very important warning signals. Do not touch that. And do attract the attention. But I think that, I'll speak for myself, and the musician, of course, we're infected with sound syllables. Robert Bly called tiny, we call them sound particles, that you put together and become words, and the words become fascination everywhere. A poem in here called Ode to the Sound of N, and maybe I'll do it and then one day. But for me, everything about words, language, the alphabet, books, and this temple amazes me. It all has a history. The smartest man America ever produced, Ralph Waldo Emerson, as smart as Gary Snyder, so we got two. Gary Snyder, who I call Emerson, said language is fossil poetry. not true. And when I read it, I mean, I just sent you spiraling back. There isn't a sound I'm making that you're hearing that doesn't have a history. The history may be 5,000 years old, maybe last week. In my case, 3 weeks ago. But you know, it runs down, people make it up. But that's mind fiction. Words, their sounds, and how they go together, it still amazes me. That we can play this game at all. And then poetry, remember? Rhythm. The heat comes from passion, like a woman like this. You should read the Liverpool. She's also, she went up to the source of the Yangtze, she's gone up to the source of the Nile, and she understands our river. She's been in it for 20 years.
Yeah.
She knows our river better
I
than
spend 2 hours every morning to welcome the sunrise and do my meditation, get all the energy, inspiration, and the rhythm and sounds for my work, for writing. And I would say, as you said right before, I would say poetry is the salt of language.
Yeah.
We use language every day without thinking, right? And it becomes, until it becomes rhyming, taken for granted. You put some salt, everything suddenly just wakes up, right? It's just-
Well said.
Right. And I did a lot of research writing that salt poem. Actually, also found, I said, without salt, the world is a silent place. There's no light. But if we separate the two elements, right, salt is really like chemical elements, right? They're like equally, one positive, one negative, right? And they're perfectly balanced. And their bonding is inseparable. If you use a lot of energy to force them apart, it will become very violent. So I asked the question, what every salt crystal in the ocean is being separated, what will happen, right? And the answer is the sea will start boiling like crazy. So just think about that. And if our language, our daily life has no poetry, what will happen to us too? Right? And also it's because poetry, you know, one way, I don't know, the town poet and musician and painter, he and Ezra Pound, right? Poetry involves two arts. One is music, that's the base for me. Without music, no poetry. And the other is image, is visual, is the art. And without image, there will be no poetry either, right? And so the two has to be blended and work together seamlessly, integral all the time. So I feel very lucky that I'm a poet, and I think poetry is also a birthright for everyone, because we use language, right? And we play. Children are the best musician, singer, artist, dancer, and poet. It's the gift, right, from our birth. But it was like just like hammered out of our brain, you know, with our education. You know, so I'm very grateful to be a poet. And also, even though poetry is the most poverty-stricken art, you can make money, right? And they say starving poet, right? There's a reason for it. But I also feel very blessed for poetry does not sell. Because if poetry does not sell for money, it's not for sale, poets can really do something beautiful on it. It's not involved or business. It's not a business. So hopefully, I don't know. People still have to eat, right? How did you live as a poet all these years?
Well, I have a it's in my, one of my books, a little Chinese style, sheer style poem he writes. And unfortunately, I haven't memorized it, I can give you the first few lines. Because this is unbelievable. So, I grew up in Deep Ear, Wisconsin, 4,000 people on the banks of the Fox River, 4 miles up the river. I can tell you the pollution story, which I tell when I talk about climate. You couldn't breathe there, and you couldn't touch the water. And that's a separate story. That's where I grew up. So right down the street, small town, what did we have? A portrait painter. Everybody sent their kids to get their portrait. So this is a true story that I can't believe, but I have a painting that was dated 1947. I was born in 44, so I was 2 years old. So first, my mother sent my older sister down the block to the woman who painted the portraits. And she painted her as a princess. And she spent her whole life as a princess. She didn't change. She expected to be waited on, and she just, the world came to her. And she was smart as a whip, but that's what she did. Then they sent my immediate older sister, 2 years older than me, down the block to the painter. Looked at her and she painted her in tremendously physical dancing pose up on toes, you know. She's 82 years old. She's a mountain climber, a world-class skier, life as a physical therapist. She's just unbelievable. I mean, she saw her. So guess what? A little boy walks down the block and she sees me. She says, "That boy needs a book in his hands." My mother told me this in my 60s. And I wrote that poem called "That Boy Needs a Book in His Hands." She painted my eyes big, a lie. But my hands did not lie. And that's my life. And it was a shocker. Now we worked through a lot together, as you know. I really didn't get, I started writing it, I don't know, when I was a boy, for no reason, but I just love language, see where it would go. It was not based upon, well, a little bit of inspiration, the cranky Stephen Crane. I don't know if anybody loves, by the way, anybody wants my little poem, Stephen Crane's the best thing you can get. It's only this big, I have these best poems. But Stephen, let's see if I can remember the shocking poem. In the desert, I met a creature who, squatting on the sand, held his heart in his hands and ate of it. I said, "Is it good, friend?" "Oh, it is bitter, bitter," he answered. "And I love it because it is bitter and because it is my heart." Whoa, man. Stephen Crane, in my day, we all read The Red Badge of Courage. Did you read it in high school? You did. Probably not, the younger people. Did you read it, or anything? He's still one of the great writers this country's ever produced, and easily to read. His poems are amazing. And if you want to I'll get you a little edited collection of his poems, which he thought were better than his prose. He fell under the spell of Goethe's theory of color. And so if you look at Stephen Crane's titles, The Red Badge of Courage, Black Riders, which is a collection of poems, one of his famous short stories, The Bride Comes the Yellow Sky, and Blue Hotel, and maybe one of the most famous opening lines in American short stories, a story called The Open Boat. He was a fearless guy, he was a journalist, and was on his way to cover the war in Cuba, and the boat sank. And he spent days in an open boat, which then ultimately crashed on the beach, somebody died. And he survived. He wrote a story called The Open Boat. The opening line is, no one could read the color of the sky. That's a little side trip on Stephen Crane. So anyway, I guess I encountered him, and, I'm not only do I not disparage my education, it was a great gift to introduce me to Stephen Crane. And many along the way. And you find poets you love and poets you don't. It doesn't mean what the culture says. The finding of Cold Mountain on Sean was transformative. When that happened, I was running an alternative school in Massachusetts, and it was completely crazy. And I'm trying to run the place, and footprints all over me. Nobody, I'm the school director, that was a joke. Nobody listened. But I did it, I pulled the thing off, and we were doing well. But I went down, where did I go to church? I went down to town to the bookstore. And Charlie Miller was there. Well, it was turned out, I just met him at the bookstore, we became pals. He was a pal of Auden, wrote a book about Auden, none of which I knew. But it was Charles Miller who said, he could just read me. He said, here, take these. It was a collection of 100 poems by Cold Mountain, translated by Vernon Watson. That was the game for me. When he said, I'll repeat the poem I started with, because I hope you see how it takes all pressure off. Here we languish, all of us, a bunch of poor scholars, ravaged by schools of hunger and cold. Out of work early, joyous poetry. Scribble, scribble, we wear out our brains. Ooh, read the works of such men and women like on that point, saved your size. We could inscribe our poems on biscuits, and homeless dogs who deigned to nibble. I went to China to meet that translator and go to that cave because of that poem and others, and to discover, as you know, no one knows better than she. Unlike America, poetry was germane, it was essential to the culture. And everybody, if you wanted to get by in the world, you had to be a damn good poet and damn good at calligraphy. If you want to get a job, most people in China actually try to learn literary because they were peasant farmers. But if you wanted to get a job in the world, you got to be able to write a fine poem, beautiful. Great story.
Can I ask about this? I'm very curious to get China and your experience. So is all of your writing, do you write first in Chinese and then
No,
or both,
in
or
English.
both in English?
Yeah, I started writing in English first.
Okay.
When I was studying English literature in New York, I walked into a classroom. It was supposed to be 18th century English novels, and turned out to be creative writing, and that is the only creative writing class I did. And I sat down and wrote a story about a duck, and then the professor wrote like, you should start writing a novel. So that was like a Zen master just whack. He said, oh, that's why I came to America to tell my stories. So very quickly, that professor, his name is Louis Walsh. He's a New York school poet, passed away a few years ago. He asked me, he called me up and said, Allen Ginsberg is going to meet, bringing Chinese poets to America for a poetry festival. Would you be willing to translate? I said yes. So I got to work with Allen Ginsberg. That's when I met Gary Snyder and Big Down and the best Chinese poets, the best American poets. Suddenly, I just stepped into two great rivers. And I was not writing, but just suddenly I just like, yeah. As I was translating, I said, this is the path I meant to walk on, So I started writing poetry and writing short stories all at the same time. I also fulfilled my dream of getting my PhD from NYU, and but I've never left the path of writing poetry since then. Since I walked into the wrong classroom, right? So yeah, for me, all my life, I just felt like, as Einstein said, there's miracle everywhere. It's really up to you, like whether you pay attention or you seize it, right? And that is my life experience. Miracles are everywhere, and it's up to us to see it and to take it. the neurons and the nerves, they are like how they travel, like also synapse, right? And which is so close to how poetry works. Synapse is like just like bridge, right? You build like you
The
know the
connectors.
columns, right? And then you just cross, right? And also like they don't travel from A to B all the way to C, but they just jump, you know, to jump across the abyss to make that connection, to connect the dots, right? And so the way the language is set up through our brain and also how our brain nerves are run is very much like also constellation in the cosmos, right, in the sky, right? How do you make constellation? You just connect dots, right? There are endless stars. You just connect certain dots, you make up the constellation. That's for me how poetry works. There are endless words, and it's up to us how we make this constellation, that constellation, by making, you know, connecting dots, right? And then the quantum theory, right, quantum entanglement, right? It's like here and there at the same time, right? Think about how poetry works, right? The metaphor allows us, and poetry has to work through metaphor. And what is a metaphor? You place Jeffrey and them, like, you know, they don't have, they should never sit next to each other. They can sit far away across the world, but you just mention the two names and they just suddenly become a couple, right? You know, that's how poetry works, you know, by just making connections. That's how our brain, the synapse works, right? And otherwise, if we work linearly from A, B, C, D, there will be no poetry, and the world will just stop running. Not enough speed. No, there will be no
A
metaphors.
little metaphor story.
Right.
She goes way into the inside the brain, and I stay outside.
You stay in the body.
But I just finished, I'm a student of linguistics, I love linguistics, it's just the history of words and languages, where they came from, you know. So I just finished this book by a British paleontologist called The Language Puzzle. He dismisses all the other guys with it, but one of the things about it was, he came down with the conclusion, as he describes in the long course of the book, how our body, you know, two amazements, well, 100,000 amazements in the book. And here's one, as he takes us from 6 million years ago, when Homo emerged from chimpanzees. We were the same. And then we went this way, and they stayed pretty much the same. One of the things that's still the same from 6 million years ago is the structure of your ear. If you look at the structure of your ear, it's mind-blowing how complicated it is. It has not changed in 6 million years. This whole thing has changed. Your brain is blown up, the structure of your mouth has changed, the structure of your throat has changed. And he says, he came to the conclusion that then where did words come from? And he says, metaphor. Hearing a sound and thinking, putting it together, and then seeing this sound goes with this, and then maybe that goes with that. And over 200,000 years, I will add a detail that I think is essential. This is Jim Lenfestey, hardly me alone. So your ancestors are out hunting and doing the things they do, and then they discovered an amazing thing. They discovered fire. And when they discovered that they could control fire, this makes proteins more available. You get much more energy out of a meal, which is why we still cook. You can still eat raw peas if you want. They're there, waiting for you to chew. And an ape, a chimp, about 80% of their energy goes into chewing. And almost very little of ours goes into chewing because we learn to cook. So we got all this available energy, but here's the deal. So we're cooking, right? How does that work? Well, we're all sitting here on the fire. Guys are coming back from the pond, women are looking at the babies, chasing them around, we're all at honey, we're all chasing babies around. poem in there about it, how I imagine it. Then the baby starts to crawl toward the fire. And those who have speech can see it, and those who don't. And so speech became this incredible tool. But it did start, I guarantee you, it started around the fire. More fuel in the brain, more energy in the brain, more time. And then this moment, because you've all been around fire, certainly know. You've seen this flickering light, which is why, by the way, try to get your kids off screens. Try to get yourself off screens. Good luck. It flickers like a fire. And we've been watching fires for what, I don't know when, hundreds of thousands of years have conquered the ability to get fire. And it's the same thing with that flicker. So it's good and bad, but so we developed the sounds that had an urgency to it. Just as an example of this, but it's, speech is a miracle. I give a talk on the history, I guess it's good, you can throw us out here anytime, I give a talk on the history of language, and I'll give you the beginning right now. So the beginning, close your eyes. Okay. Now open it. Now poke the person on your left. See what just happened? I made sounds. You went into your ears, and you did what I said. It's not possible. This is not possible, and yet it's what we do all the time. And I hope we're making sense now. I'm not sure. Bless you for coming. We'll be around. Yeah. Yes.
I have one quick question. So you said you're writing poetry and like just writing and reading since you were a boy, since you were a little kid. What kind of stuff were you writing when you were in your 20s? Like what topics were you interested in? What motivated you at that time?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm guessing you're in that area. Oh, well,
Yeah.
you may have, if you're in the soup that I was in, I wrote a book about it later. But I have 4 kids. So there's a poem in my marriage. I wrote a book called 50 Years of Poems from a Marriage, which began, the poems are like, I have a poem to the birth of my daughter, the birth of my son, and on as these kids became, and mastered language. What about, so I was dealing with that, but I would do it. There's a poem in there, but it's just, here's what I would do. You have to wait for some, I require a quiet. You probably do too, I don't know.
I like to play.
I like the quiet, because then the spirit gets unlocked, and you can be working on a job, and then suddenly be over here, because your spirit is unlocked. So that's this quiet space that comes. On my website, you can look at my website, there's an essay called How I Write Poetry. It's about going on vacation in a family cabin, but bringing along this much work, but sitting down and suddenly I see a billion woodpecker outside the window, and that's the story that turned into a poem. And it requires this sort of still spirit, I think, that allows you to capture it. So in my 20s, I was writing like what we all do, what's around us, but because I had 4 kids, and as our friend
Not
Eric.
at 20, you didn't have 4 kids.
Well, no, I had 1 though. No, in my 20s, yeah, I had 1 all over again. It's crying babies and all that, and it's all in the story. So I would write poems. There's a poem there about being up late at night, and reciting. Everybody's in bed. I'm reciting poems of Han Shan to the refrigerator, and noticing the towering Cheerio on the kitchen table, which I'd never noticed before. And when the house was quiet, and when all of the problems were put to bed, then so same for you, I think. Tell us about playing and dance. She's quite a dancer too, in addition to rowing and dancing and other physical things. So.
Well, yeah, I'm an athlete. But I think play is a must to be alive. So poetry, a good poem must allow readers to play with the poem. When you see a poem, what attracts you to a poem is immediately it gives you a lot of room on playground. jumping, making, connecting dots, making constellation comes in, you know, and yeah. So play defies linear, poetry defies linear. So just let your mind be free and play, and poetry will come to you.
I have who's the famous tall blonde singer, richest woman in the world? I think, what? Yeah, Taylor Swift. Yeah, they go. Well, she's amazing. But she would, I took a line, I give a talk on called Freeway to the End of Life. I took a line from her, and it's as an illustration of what you're asking, what she said. She said, how do you write songs? She said, it's like a weird haunting. I love that phrase. It's like a weird haunting. I don't know what she said. Ask any songwriter, ask any poet, where does it come from? You get a sense of where it might go, but you don't have a sense of where it might come from. These energy beats go together, and then you go. It's a poem in here called Sitting on the Couch, reading Wendell Berry's book about William Carlos Williams. And it's, so I'm sitting there. You know, I get up in the morning and I write the poem. And that's what I do when we got the kids out of the house, which is why I'm publishing like a madman, because it took until I was 60. It's about really these last 20 years ago where all the books came. But so I'm sitting there reading this book, and then I look up, and the whole room had changed. And it changed because of a word. I looked up and I saw the cove molding. You know what cove molding is? It's molding like that with the ceiling and the walls come together. But what struck me for the first time in my life was the double meaning of cove. When you're in the water, and suddenly the whole room was underwater. And you'll see, if I could, it's really not a long one, because it's actually quite amazing illustrating this point. Yeah. Looking up at the ceiling after reading the poetry of William Carlos Williams, it's a short one. From the couch, I see now the ceiling is not flat, but waves are white. An ocean of particulate foam, a sky of shadows, a home for surprising darkness, as the fresh snow outside is hollowed too with darkness, caves of silence, and the wind of the furnace howls. And everything below the cove molding is as if below a waterline. And the pots of narcissus and the lamps and the chairs seem passing fishes. And the open book lies scattering, and the open book lies scattered along the ocean floor, like a lost ship filled with treasure that everyone above is looking for, that I have found. Isn't that cool? I had no idea where any of this was going.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I just had a quick question about poems read silently in poetry. And I wondered, maybe Jim, we have this experience that I do when I read
How do you know you're
silently. I am more prone to see the pictures when I read it aloud, which I always do. I'm more prone to hear the sound of it. Seems like even though poetry
That makes sense. So we gotta go outside. Cool. And everybody buy 2 or 3 or 10, because these are the best 2 books you're gonna see in a long time. Nice to meet you. Thanks for your question.
Also, I noticed
The
that
answer is,
I might begin to think of another stanza, and it doesn't work out. It's like, oh right, the moment I start thinking about it, I start trying, that's when we've gone so far. Or it becomes something else. It becomes something else. And sometimes that last thought is you know, you just put that back in the box, and then you have to find a way out of another way.
So right before
So how is that different? Well, so I even think it's practicing law, well, everything is like generally speak. Law is just so I even think of writing remarks or a courtroom, like a resident put more thought into what my audience is, or I feel more particularized in what my audience comes to. The poetry, I